asymptomatic testing, symptomatic testing, and vaccinations through PMC. Although we're starting to downgrade some of those services as our numbers continue to go down and our vaccination rate continues to go up. So our respiratory clinic, our hotline number will still be available, but our dedicated staff will probably be reducing that in the next couple of weeks. In addition to our respiratory clinic, the numbers are not very high, so we're most likely going to start downgrading that as well. Last Friday, PMC staff and Mountain View Manor met in a work session. It's great. We're looking forward to establishing a recurring meeting and refine and enhance our lines of communication. So that was positive, in my opinion. We're very excited. We have 4 nurse graduates that through the UAA and PMC nursing program that graduated. Despite the pandemic, we have 4 new nurses: Emma Gates, Kelly Bieber, Lauren Thane, and Kim Robson. I want to thank the nursing instructors, Jen Briner, Nicole Mattingly, and Ruby Shumway, as the UAA teachers at PMC. It's really a great show of local workforce development, and the pinning ceremony was fantastic last Saturday evening. Looking forward to our PMC board and Borough annual work session this Wednesday at 4 p.m. and focus our conversation on facility, and we'll provide a more detailed update on operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Any assembly members have questions for Phil today? Right on. Thanks, Phil. That brings us down to Fire Chief Stelpe will provide his quarterly report to the Assembly. Chief Stelpe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Assembly members, for allowing me to speak on behalf of your Petersburg Volunteer Fire Department. I would like to present this information to you as it relates to your Petersburg Volunteer Fire Department for the first quarter of 2021, January through March. As you know, 2020 was a very unusual year due to the COVID-19, and unfortunately, we continue to be impacted by the pandemic in 2021. The Petersburg Volunteer Fire Department and its members are not exempt from restrictions and or mitigations measures set forth by the CDC, the state of Alaska, and the Borough. The fire branch has continued with in-person training, and the EMS side and the SAR side have recently resumed in-person training, with all the mitigation measures in place. We continue to meet virtually, if not in person, with our training. We continue to postpone and or suspend activity and programs until it's safe to resume. And unfortunately, one of the programs that we suspended was the Junior Volunteer Fire Program, and that was a big loss to the kids. They were really looking forward to that. So were the instructors. So here we go. The fire branch donated 516 person hours, responded to 19 incidents for 246 person hours donated, 7 drills for 170 person hours donated, participated in other activities, meetings, good deeds, opportunities, and etc. for 100 person hours donated. The EMS branch donated 335 person hours, responded to 54 calls with 54 patient contacts for 170 person hours donated, had 6 drills for 98 person hours donated, participated in other activities, meetings, BLS, the polar dip, echoes, etc. for another 87 person hours donated. The search and rescue branch donated 116 person hours, responded to 1 incident for 3 person hours donated, had 5 drills with 94 person hours donated, participated in other activities, meetings, admin, gear organization for another 19 person hours donated. Your Petersburg Volunteer Fire Department members donated 987 person hours for that first quarter, January through March. We still are accepting applications for new members. We hope to offer a firefighter recruit class and an EMT course and restart the junior program as soon as it is safe to do so. And unfortunately, we don't know, that probably won't happen until next year. And as always, we still stand ready to help the citizens in their hour of need. Whether their issues be big or small, we're still here. And we would like to thank, excuse me, we would like to thank our staff, Sandy Dixon, Ryan Weldy, Josh Rathman, for keeping us safe from the things that are surrounding us. So with that, I thank you very much for allowing me to speak. You folks have a safe day and be careful out there.
Any questions for Chief Stelpe? Thank you so much, Jim, for your service and the service of all your staff and volunteers. Much appreciated, sir.
Thank you, sir.
With that, Clerk Thompson, the floor is yours to talk about our Zoom meetings, please.
Okay, well, one thing that COVID has done for us was to show us that our audio system in the assembly chambers was not properly set up for audio conferencing. So earlier this year, we had a new system installed, and we are learning how to properly use it still. We're getting there. This COVID era also showed us that we are behind the times when it comes to live streaming video of our assembly meetings and using one of the new video conferencing systems offered like Zoom. Most other Southeast towns are already providing these services for their residents. So we considered a consolidation of services from MuniCode, the company that hosts our municipal code and also offers website and meeting management systems. We will have a new website up and running within the next couple of months. Once that happens, things will be a little easier for people to find. Tonight is our first use of the MuniCode's meeting management system and Zoom for video conferencing, or today, it's not even tonight. Please have patience with us as there is a learning curve here, but we will figure it out. Until the new website goes live, the public may find our meeting agendas on the home page of our current website in a blue box on the left-hand side labeled New Assembly Meeting Platform. Click on it, click on that box, and it will take you to a list of meetings with agendas and packets in two versions, PDF and HTML. With the new Zoom meeting format, members of the public who wish to speak under any public hearing or persons to be heard related or unrelated to the agenda need to sign up with the clerk's office no later than 1 hour prior to the meeting start time. For noon meetings, the sign up to speak deadline will be 11 a.m. For 6 p.m. meetings, the sign up to speak deadline will be 5 p.m. The public may register with the clerk's office as early as they choose to. If you know 2 weeks down the road that you're probably going to want to speak at a meeting, let me know and I'll get you on a list for that meeting. And to sign up, you can either email me at dthompson@petersburgak.gov or give me a call at 772-5405. Call the front desk. If you're having a hard time finding me, they will know where I am. When we are able to open back up to having public in-person participation at meetings, the option to speak via Zoom will still be available, so the public will have a choice of testifying in person or via Zoom. When the new website is live, I hope to have a form the public can fill out on the website to let us know that they wish to speak at a meeting, and it'll be easier to sign up that way. We'll have more information to come on that in the future. And any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Excellent. Thanks to both you and Becky for your efforts getting that going, and we'll navigate whatever hurdles we have. We'll make it work. Thank you. Yes, Member Mucci, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So will the iLegislate, is that no longer in use?
That is no longer in use.
Okay. All right. And so will we be able to, will the community be able to call the morning of the meeting or during the meeting to still speak under visitors' views, unrelated or related?
We would like the community, if they're going to Zoom in or call in, to sign up an hour before the meeting starts.
So Is that excuse me, Mr. Mayor. So is that like a hard deadline, or if people can, if they feel strongly about just calling up and speaking?
That's really not going to be a possibility. When we're managing the meeting as it's going on, it's a little bit hard to know if people Zoom in, if they're just Zooming in to listen, or if they're Zooming in to speak. We are requesting people sign up an hour before the meeting starts. If I happen to get an email or see a message past that deadline, but before the meeting starts, I'm certainly going to add those people to the list. I'm going to do my best to accommodate. But, and as I said, once we're open to in-person meetings again, people can always come in, and they can do that during the meeting once we're open to in-person. But as far as Zooming in, I really do want to try to stick to having a deadline to sign up for the ease of the clerks.
Okay, thank you.
Right on. Any other questions for Clerk Thompson? Right on. With that, I believe that brings us to the mayor's report. Right, item number 1, Alaska natives without land legislation. Alaska's federal delegation plans to reintroduce the landless native legislation soon. Comments and questions regarding the transfer of ownership of federal lands and infrastructure to the Southeast Alaska Native communities that are not included in the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act may be emailed to assembly@petersburgak.gov, and a copy of Senate Bill 4891, which was introduced in the 116th Congress but failed to move to a vote of Congress before the end of the last session, is on the Borough website for public viewing, along with maps of the federal land selected for transfer to Haines, Ketchikan, Petersburg, Tenakee, and Wrangell. Conference of Young Alaskans. The Alaska Municipal League and the Alaska Conference of Mayors are hosting the 2021 Conference of Young Alaskans, called KOYA, August 1st through the 4th, 2021 in Fairbanks. 55 emerging leaders between the ages of 16 and 25 will participate as delegates, deliberating municipal policy and forming vision statements for municipal governance in Alaska. Delegates will be selected based on their application to participate in this unique opportunity. Selected delegates will attend at no cost to them. The application deadline is May 10th, 2021. A draft agenda and information packet regarding the conference are attached to this report. I highly encourage young folks to participate in that. That seems like a really, really cool opportunity. So fill out that application and try to be a part of that process. Number 3, changing the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance during assembly meetings from voluntary to mandatory. At the April 19th, 2021 assembly meeting, Member Norheim brought up the subject of mandatory recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance, a version without the words "under God" during the assembly meetings. Borough Attorney Heidemann feels mandatory recitation would face serious constitutional challenge under both federal and state constitution. Attorney Heidemann's opinion is as follows. In my view, an ordinance compelling the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance by individual assembly members, as opposed to members remaining silent during a voluntary pledge, would face serious constitutional challenges under both federal and state constitutions, specifically the free speech rights granted under the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the freedom of speech provisions of Article 1, Section 5 of the Alaska Constitution, which the Alaska Supreme Court has held protects free speech at least as broadly as the U.S. Constitution. See, e.g., West Virginia State Board of Education versus Barnett, 319 U.S. 624, year 1943. That was a United States Supreme Court case holding unconstitutional Board of Education resolution requiring teachers and pupils to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and salute the flag. Removal of the words "under God" from the pledge would not cure the constitutional concerns. And there is no Alaska Supreme Court case which directly addresses the issue of Pledge of Allegiance. However, the court did uphold free speech rights of elected officials and Alaskans for a common language, Inc. versus Kritz, 170, page 3D, 183, Alaska, 2007, and that was in the context of an English-only initiative. Number 4, invitation to join the United Fishermen of Alaska. Mayor Jensen received an invitation from UFA director requesting the Petersburg Borough join the UFA as a community supporting member at the cost of $300 per year. Joining the UFA will support the economic benefits provided the state and local businesses by the commercial fishing industry. If any assembly member would like this as an action item in the future agenda, please let Clerk Thompson know. The letter from UFA Executive Director Leach is attached to this report. And last but not least, we are seeking letters of interest From Borough residents who wish to serve the community by filling a vacant seat on the following boards, commissions until the October 2021 municipal election. Those seats are Planning Commission, 1 vacant seat. Please, someone put in your name for that. The Planning Commission is very important. And we have 2 seats on the Public Safety Advisory Board. Letters of interest should be submitted to Clerk Thompson at the Borough office located at 12 South Nordic Drive by emailing to P.O. Box 329, Petersburg, AK 99833, or by emailing to dthompson@petersburgak.gov. And with that, Mr. Manager, it is ready for your manager's report. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. The borough has several open positions in departments. Interested parties should check with Becky or review the borough's website and Facebook page. The elderly housing window replacement should take place towards the end of May. We try to do 5 windows a year to keep those in good shape and replace the older windows that are up there. Sandy attended several virtual meetings this past weeks. These include the State Local Emergency Planning Committee Association, Southeast Regional EMS Symposium, and the Petersburg Port Safety and Security Spring Teleconference. Ryan attended the Alaska Fire and Arson Investigators Conference. The library is getting summer programs ready to launch. We have programs for all ages this summer, so please check in with Tara and the folks at the library. Thanks to the many individuals and businesses that have donated to the summer stream. Donations can be made online at psglib.org or at the library front desk. We're excited to welcome Ray Wiesbaum to the Community Development Department. Ray will be taking over the building official duties. His first day is May 3rd. State of Alaska's Low-Income Heating Assistance Program is accepting applications through October 31st this year. The state has also set up a virtual call center to assist applicants. Phone number is 1-800-478-7778. Applicants must meet income requirements to receive assistance, and the applications are available at the Borough Finance Office or online at dhss.alaska.gov and search for the application. Water staff helped to mark the location of a water main on 12th Street prior to the start of the next phase of PIA's project to install storm drainage and sidewalks from Haugen Drive to the airport subdivision. Sidewalk on 12th Street will be installed on top of the water main that experienced a bad leak about a year and a half ago. Planning for the replacement of this main should be possible without disturbing a majority of the sidewalk or pavement. ADEC has issued an approval to construct for the Ira 2 Street Sewer Main Project. Alan Murph, who's the project engineer, is currently working on bid documents to advertise the work as soon as possible. Rockin' Road has made good progress on the Scow Bay Pump Station project. On April 27th, the new wet well was placed. The recent dry weather helped to reduce groundwater impacts to the project dramatically. Staff is spending some time to familiarize themselves with the new public restroom trailers at Public Works and sort out how they will be sited and operated through the spring, summer, and fall. We have a goal to have at least one of the trailers set up in the back of the municipal parking lot prior to the Little Norway Festival. The annual SEPA shutdown is scheduled for the first 10 days of June. D&D Tree Service continues to assist Power and Light with various cutting and clearing activities around our local power lines. Power and Light is also working with the Chamber of Commerce and Hammer and Weekon to provide power to various functions and locations for the festival. The spring snow survey at Tyee and Swan Lakes indicate there's the equivalent of 68 feet of lake level in the snowpack at Swan Lake and a whopping 159 feet of lake level equivalent at Tyee. In one of the survey locations at Tyee Lake, the snow was over 20 feet deep and exceeded the capabilities of the measuring equipment. Crystal Lake has a healthy snowpack as well, but no annual calculations on snow water equivalent are made. The spring temperatures and rainfall, all lakes are now starting to fill up. Finance Department is starting up disconnects again for non-payment of utilities. Those had been put on hold through the majority of the COVID pandemic. Corps of Engineers has rescheduled the dredge spoil sampling for the first week in May. Staff continues to work on coordination support for this project. Annual launch permits and Middle Harbor parking permits are now available at the Harbor Office. And please join Petersburg Parks and Rec this summer from May 1st through September 1st in a little friendly Southeast competition against Juneau and Wrangell in our Walk Southeast event. Check out the Parks and Rec Facebook page or contact them for more details. We will resume charging at Parks and Rec beginning on May 17th. More details to follow on that. I met with Mark Morris and Peter Anderson regarding the repairs to the Aquatic Center. We have a mechanical engineer coming on May 7th, and we are expecting some additional information from the original project engineer, Wayne Jensen, shortly. We're working with them to identify the possible repairs and outline the estimates on the cost for the facility. Also appears we will have to take a hard look at the interior of the building where we're seeing significant paint flaking occurring on some of the structural beams and contributing to corrosion. I do not have a time frame on that or cost for what it would take to fix that. We'll work through that. And echoing what Phil said, Assisted Living and Petersburg Medical Center staff met to discuss improved communications between the groups. This is a meeting that we'd like to do regularly and help coordinate resident care at the manor. And that's it, unless there's questions.
Questions for the manager? No, thank you, Steve. Much appreciated. All right. That brings us to item number 14, unfinished business. Ordinance 2021-05, an ordinance adjusting the fiscal year 2021 budget for known changes, third and final reading. I'll read this here for the listening public. Ordinance 2021-05 adjusts fiscal year 2021 budget to transfer funds from the general fund to the property development fund, delegate funds to the purchase of a new E911 system, delegate funds to the motor pool shop, alternate modifications, delegate funds to the Southeast Storm Local Emergency Disaster Fund to repair the city shop culvert failure, delegate funds to repair the Ira 2 street sewer main, and accept grant funding for testing and vaccination expenses from the Department of Health and Human and Social Services. The ordinance was unanimously approved in its first and second readings, and as amended in the second. Public Works Director Cotta requests an amendment to the supplemental budget to transfer from the Property Development Fund to the Motor Pool Shop Fire Damage Repairs Project $52,650 to cover the cost to change order number 1, which will use spray foam insulation in the roof and wall cavities of the shop to fill all voids and create an airtight insulation layer for our cold, wet climate at the cost of $26,400. Also to correct framing deficiencies found during demolition to meet code, $16,300. And correct plumbing deficiencies found during the design and construction phase of the project at $6,750, and to replace a failed air line to center workbench at $3,200. Clerk Thompson, would it be cleaner if we make the motion on the ordinance, then get an amendment afterwards?
It would.
Excellent. Then I would entertain a motion to approve this ordinance in its third and final reading.
So move.
Second.
Motion has been made by Member Mucci and seconded by Member Tremblay. Discussion, or if anyone was so inclined, I would entertain an amendment as noted in our packet to transfer $52,650 from the Property Development Fund to the Motor Pool Shop Fire Damage Repairs Project.
Second.
An amendment has been made by Member Mucci and seconded by Member Kensinger. Discussion on the amendment. Excellent. Will the clerk call the roll on the amendment?
Jay,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you.
That amendment passes unanimously. Now back to the ordinance as a whole as amended. Any discussion here in the third and final reading from folks? Excellent. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chelsea,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right on. That ordinance passes unanimously in its third and final reading. Brings us to item B, Ordinance 2021-06, an ordinance determining that property conveyed to the borough in a tax foreclosure proceeding shall not be retained for a public purpose and shall hereafter be sold. Third and final reading. I would entertain a motion to approve this in its third and final reading.
Second.
Been moved by member Mucci and seconded by member Kensinger. And for those listening at home, these are properties we've obtained through foreclosure, and this would give us direction to sell them. Any discussion from the assembly? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Chelsea.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance passes unanimously in its third and final reading, which brings us to a very similar ordinance, Ordinance 2021-07. An ordinance determining that property conveyed to the borough in a tax foreclosure proceeding shall not be retained for public purpose and shall hereafter to be sold. Third and final reading. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion been made by member Mucci and seconded by member Kensinger. And for those listening at home, this is just for the same exact wording, just for a different property. Any member Mucci? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
I guess to the city clerk, what's next here? If people are interested in purchasing these, do they get a hold of the borough, or what's the process here?
Sure. If someone is interested in purchasing these properties, they could fill out an application to purchase. And they are online, or they can contact me. I can email them applications.
Is that a bid process, or just make an offer and?
It is a bid process. Oh, go ahead, Jody. Are you sure? It is a bid process unless the assembly decides otherwise.
Assuming it passes, that is. Just kidding.
Correct.
Anyway, any further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that passes unanimously in its third and final reading. Which brings us to item D, ordinance 2021-08, an ordinance to reduce the boundaries of Borough Service Area 1 by removing Frederick Point East subdivision, and to direct that the proposed boundary amendment be submitted to the voters residing within the service area at the regular election to be held October 5th, 2021, in accordance with Borough Charter Section 14.03B, 1 and 2, second reading. This was approved unanimously in its first reading, so I would entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made by member Mucci and seconded by member Lynn. Discussion. Member Mucci, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This ordinance, this is in the second reading, so we haven't heard any public comments from the public other than a couple of letters from one person who has property out there. As far as I know, there's only one family living out there. This is kind of an idea that people have been talking about for years, about a differential tax structure for people who own property in remote locations that, for me, if you're not getting sewer, water, fire, police protection, and you're not on the road system, I personally don't feel you should be paying the same taxes as myself or somebody else who lives more or less in town. I know there has been a few questions about the loss of revenue to the borough, but for me, I'm just trying to figure out a more fair tax structure for people who aren't getting any services. And I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, member Mucci. Anyone else?
Yes,
Go ahead.
yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Jeff. I think this is something we should address, and I definitely going to support this being on the ballot.
Thank you, member Kensinger. Director Tao, may I direct a question to you? From a finance perspective, what, if any, reservations do you have about this going forward, if I may?
Well, the assessed property values in Frederick Point East are already much lower than they are in even Frederick Point North. Waterfront values per square foot are at 35 cents per square foot compared to Frederick Point North, whose waterfront assessed values are $1.27 per square foot. Some other concerns is that there are other properties in the service area 1 that aren't on the road system. So perhaps this might open up another can of worms. If the voters vote to take it out of Service Area 1, if it does leave Service Area 1, there'll no longer be building permits or zoning code enforced out there. What else? We are about to get some more land from the state that's going to be conveyed to us, and some of that property is right next to that area. So I'm not sure what we would do about that. And then let's just say, you know, someday there is a road that's built out there. Then what? It's going to be really hard to get someone that's not in Service Area 1 back into Service Area 1. So those are some of my concerns. I, you know, understand the other side, of course, as well, but those are some things that we've been thinking about.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Director Tao. Member Kinsinger.
Yes, in response to Jody's comments, I agree 100%. And I basically think we need to take a look at the entire, and I know this is another discussion for a later day and a very controversial one, but I think we need to be looking at how we have our tax structure throughout the entire borough. I think we should take a look at a structure that perhaps has 3 different tax structures. One, if you have road, sewer, and water, another tax structure, and electricity, another tax structure if you have road and electricity and garbage and other services, and then another tax structure that if you don't have any services at all. So we basically have 3 different areas or 3 different tax structures that we could look at throughout the entire borough. I understand that this would require a change in the charter, but as Director Tao has pointed out, going forward, the borough is going to be receiving a lot of property in remote locations. And I think as the community continues to grow going out the road, you know, we need to take a look at that. I think people are expecting and wanting more services. I personally own property in all 3 areas that I described. I own property, commercial property in Service Area 1. I own a shop and apartment out at Papke's, and then I currently live on remote property out in Keene Channel. So I understand that what I'm proposing, I'm going to make some people really happy and some people are really angry, but I think it's something that we're going to have to look at going forward. And the intent of my proposal in the future would be to make it revenue neutral. And I understand there's going to be winners and losers in this process, but I think it's something we need to rectify from the original creation of the borough.
Member Kinsinger, I'm going to bring it back to the ordinance at hand and offer my 2 cents on it for whatever it's worth. I share some of the concerns that Director Tao voiced, being that the assessed value is lower. I think it's messy, trying to find a right way to make things equitable. Generally speaking, those who have followed votes I've made through the years, I'm very quick to put something on the ballot to allow the voters to decide that. So I'm having a hard time wrestling with a potential no vote on this, because I think this is a really complex issue. But the concerns Director Tao shared are mine as well. Any further discussion from the Assembly? Member Norheim, any interest in chiming in on this one?
I could. I mean, you know, I'm all about less government involvement, so I'm all in favor for this. I don't know what the public will think because they will be voting on it. So, I mean, I'm going to be voting yes, but I don't have any deep thoughts on it other than that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Member Norheim. Yes, Member Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
Just a question for the Finance Director. So if this ordinance goes through to the 3rd and final reading and it goes on the ballot in October, and the property out at Frederick Point East is off or paying a different tax structure, how much money will the borough lose in revenue from those properties out there?
Approximately $10,000.
So just a follow-up, so that if there is a road put in out to Frederick Point East, these properties would be assessed more, is that correct?
Well, I can't speak for the assessor, so I would
But-
assume so, but.
Okay. Thank you.
And can I say one other thing?
Of course,
I forgot
Director
to
Tom.
mention earlier, just a reminder to everyone that your property taxes don't pay for utilities. So really having electricity or having water or having sewer or sanitation really shouldn't be a factor in this. The users of those utilities pay for those, so.
Other discussion from the assembly in this second reading? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
David,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jeff. Yes. Taylor,
Yes.
thank you.
Passes unanimously in its second reading, and for those, although we had nobody calling in today, there will be another reading in 2 weeks, and all feedback will be welcome from the public. Which brings us to new business. Item A, ordinance 2021-09, an ordinance adopting the budget for fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. I would entertain a motion to approve this in its first reading.
So moved.
Been moved by Member Lynn and seconded by Member Mucci. Discussion. Member Lynn, go ahead.
Yes, I have two motions I'd like to make, amendments to this, if I might.
Absolutely.
And I'll start with the first one. I move to increase the KFSK Community Services request $3,000 to $35,000, which was the amount requested, and I would take this from reserves.
Second that.
So if I've got this right, motion been made by Member Lynn and seconded by Member Tremblay to increase the KFSK budget an additional $3,000 to a grand total of $35,000.
5,000, which is what was requested.
There we go. We've got that, Clerk Thompson?
Yes, I do.
All right. Discussion on the amendment. Member Norheim, of course.
I guess on this particular one, I'll say what I always say is that I think the radio station is very important. In the case of an emergency, they are a very reliable source to get information out to people when they need it, and I fully support this move.
Thank you, Member Norheim. I would just briefly echo your comments on that. I think over the course of this last 13, 14 months, we leaned on KFSK more than ever to provide the great services they do, and they did nothing short of amazing work for our community over this time. So, like you said, Member Norheim, I'll definitely be voting yes as well. Any further discussion on the amendment? Cool. Will the clerk please call the roll on the amendment to add $3,000 more to the KFSK community service budget?
Jeff,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
thank you.
All right, that amendment passes unanimously. And Member Lynn, I believe you said you had a second one on the docket?
I do.
Go for it.
I move that we match the property tax mill rate from last year of 11.5 mills which would bring it back, which we would have to bring $117,000 back more from the general fund to in next year's budget. Any rate, to reduce to match to keep it at last year's mill rate.
So before, actually, first of all, is there a second?
I'll second just for
All right, just,
conversation.
Roger, to clarify, Member Lynn, you would be requesting that we keep the mill rate as it is now, as opposed to what it's in the budget by drawing $117,000 from the general fund, is this correct?
That's correct.
Clerk Thompson, you have that?
I do.
All right. Since it was your amendment, I'll give you the floor back if you want to speak to it, Member Lynn.
Yeah, with all the changes that have taken place, and we're still in a COVID situation, trying to recover from it, I would like to see us just maintain the mill rate where it is for one more year. We can do that. I've looking at the budget, and I'd have Jody could chime in here anytime she wants. I would just like to hold it the same. The other thing we're going to have to do is look at increases in a number of the enterprise funds during the year too. And so there is going to be some offset because people are going to be paying more for some of the other services. So the point being is that there will be, their payments are going to be a bit higher. And all I want to do is just hold it the same for another year. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Lynn. I'm going to briefly direct this to Director Tao. Being that you are our finance director, I should probably defer to you and see, does this something that gives you a lot of heartache, or do you feel comfortable with it? Just for those listening at home, I know we've spoken some about it.
Very comfortable.
Excellent, thank you. Further discussion on the amendment? Excellent. Will the clerk call the roll on the amendment, please?
Taylor,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that amendment also passes unanimously. So now we've got a twice amended budget, and we're back to the main budget. Any further discussion on the budget here in its first reading? Member Lynn?
Yeah, only I thank Jody and Steve for the work that was done in this. It's, as they've said, it's a pretty mundane budget, but I kind of like it that way. Anyhow, thank you.
Absolutely. And just for those listening at home, I know the budget can seem like a cumbersome thing, but this is on our website right now? Yes?
Yes.
And I wholeheartedly agree with what Member Lynn said. It is a wonderfully boring budget, as well they should be. Nothing, they did a great job. But for those listening at home, if you want to peruse through it, you've got two more readings of it. Any and all feedback is always welcome on the budget. And any further discussion from the Assembly today on reading one? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Taylor,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Chelsea,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Jeff. Thank you.
Right on. The ordinance for passing the budget passes unanimously in its first reading. Bringing us on to item B of new business. Borough comments to DNR's preliminary decision regarding Petersburg Borough Municipal Land Selections, ADL 108981 Thomas Bay. The comment deadline for DNR's preliminary decision regarding Petersburg Borough's municipal land selections is May 3rd, 2021. Community and Economic Director Cabrera has drafted the attached response for the Assembly to approve or amend. I would entertain a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion been made by Member Mucci and seconded by Member Kensinger. Discussion. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Member Mucci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question that I have is that I've been looking through the landless legislation maps that were attached a couple of months ago, and one of the parcels, or several of the parcels that the landless legislation selected was the same parcel as this, as far as
right, I'm following
as
you
far
now.
as I can tell. And what would this do to the process if the borough of Petersburg selected these lands? Would it exclude, and they were given these lands, would it exclude the landless legislation from picking these parcel, or how is that all addressed? I just don't know.
I don't either. Clerk Thompson? Or
Is Liz on the call?
I'm hoping so.
If not, I can probably give it an attempt. Okay. May I, through the mayor?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'd have to verify. First of all, my understanding, the landless group can only choose federal land, and the borough can only choose state land. So something's not right. So if you could give us the property number, we'll look into it and try to figure this out, because it's not supposed to be possible. That being said, if we choose it, the landless folks cannot take it back from the borough if there's some exclusion that I'm not aware of. But again, it's not supposed to be possible. The landless land that you're talking about is coming from federal-owned property, not state-owned.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'm just looking at, I know there's no legislation out there per se right now, but last August when this was floated out there, it looks like the exact same parcels of land on this one as it was on the borough's one. And I just,
Sure.
I see it coming, and I was just curious how it's, in the.
Not supposed to happen, but we'll definitely have to look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. My only comment is I just appreciate Director Cabrera's efforts on this. There's no amendments I would be asking to be entertained, but obviously it's a purview of the Assembly. Further discussion from the Assembly? Member Lynn, please.
I agree with the mayor on the amount of work that went into this. It's an incredible amount, looking at all the easements, looking at the boundaries, looking at the property boundaries, looking at whether we would be ownership would be to mean high tide, whether there's an annual fish. I mean, there was an incredible amount of work behind this that she put into this. I'm kind of disappointed in the state in two respects. One is that it would be much simpler if the boundaries of that was left to mean high tide, rather than to have to do a survey every time you want to actually develop something. And for the public, every time that the borough wants to do something, even though there may have been either a federal or a state survey to a high standard, we have to go back and resurvey it. That seems to me to be redundant and not really necessary. But there's comments in there to that respect. But for the public's viewpoint, that seems to me to be a waste of money and a waste of time here. And those points I know that Liz has addressed, and I think they're extremely important for future costs for this borough.
Thank you, Member Lynn. Any further discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Jeff,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Chelsea, Taylor,
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that passes unanimously. Bringing us down to communications. All correspondence received since April 15th, 2021 is on the Borough website. Feel free to peruse it and get some good reading. Brings us to item 17, Assembly discussion items. Item A is seasonal sales tax. Assemblymember Norheim requests a discussion about a seasonal sales tax. And with that, Member Norheim, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You may recall several years ago I brought this up. Several communities use this. I am now informed that we have updated our computer systems to the point where we will be able to use this if we so choose. The idea being you raise the sales tax in the summertime and lower it in the winter. That way you could get some offset costs for locals, less on our end, more on tourism end. And because we are kind of right up against our tourism season, or whatever we may have, I was thinking that just informing you guys that we do have the capability to do this, because I don't think it would be responsible to vote on it and try and implement it mid-season, and maybe sometime in the fall you guys could put this forward, or maybe before the October elections I could put it on and we could vote on it before then, just so you're all aware.
Thank you, Member Norheim. Member Mucci, you had a comment.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course.
So to the city clerk, how would we go about doing this? What would be the mechanism for putting this seasonal sales tax in place?
Well, it would have to be by ordinance. And Jody, does it have to go to a vote of the people?
Yeah, it would have to go to a vote of the people. And we would need to spend some time deciding what the rates should actually be. I mean, it's not something that could be done very quickly. And, since COVID's here, has been here, our sales tax has changed quite a bit. So that's a factor too. My personal thought is if we're going to go down this road, to maybe hold off until next year's election, the ballot, just to spend some more time and talk to businesses and the chamber and, get everyone's thoughts on this before we rush into anything. Because this, like you've seeing, like I demonstrated in the budget presentation that we had the other day, you know, it's a huge part of our budget. And so we need to be very careful that, you know, we don't cut ourselves short as far as revenues go.
Thank you, Jody. I don't know if you caught all that. Member Norheim, you kind of got the script of what steps to take if there's something you want to transition from discussion to action. You've got the clerk and the director can point you in the right direction if that's something you want to take action on. Any further comments from the assembly on this topic? Member Lynn.
Just a question for Jody. Since we're involved with the state or with AML on collection of online sales tax, would then that, if you were to make some kind of a differential change, you know, for taxes, would that also affect that AML's collection and how we do business? And how would that play into it?
Well, they would have to change the rate that they collect from the vendors that remit to them. It would have to match ours. And then that's another thing to keep in mind too, if the state ever decides to have a state sales tax, which, you know, they have been talking about it, I believe the cap is it 7% that we can have total? And we already have a 6%. I mean, it's just another thing to keep in mind.
Thanks, Director Tao. Yeah, go ahead, Member Kensinger.
Having done business in a community that had basically 6 months out of the year, it had 1% sales tax, and the other 6 months out of the year, another percentage sales tax. Just speaking from the standpoint of a business person, it's a pain. So, I mean, you have to keep that in consideration. You always have to remember on sales tax, it's a lot of work for small businesses to collect, to calculate, and to remit. And my fear is that anytime you make that more complicated, you're just putting an additional burden on small businesses. So I would really have to be convinced that this is really going to be something wonderful before I could support it. But I'd be willing to, I'll bring it up with the chamber and get some feedback from our local businesses and see what they think.
Thanks, Member Kensinger. Yeah, I echo your sentiments on that. I'm hard pressed to find motivation to make the cost of doing business more challenging for small businesses in our community. But that's why it's a discussion item. Any other comments from the assembly today on this topic? Right on. That'll bring us back to item B, Assembly Member and Mayor term limits. Assembly Member Norheim requests a discussion on term limits for Assembly members and Mayor. Once again, the floor is yours, Member Norheim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular item, I am going to put it to a vote at our next meeting. The idea being that I don't like having, like when I said when I ran the first time, it's like I don't like seeing the same names on the ballot over and over and over again. Well, with no term limits, it is just that, the same names over and over again. I would rather see new people moving in and out, even if it's only just once, or maybe show up later. I mean, that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm not running again, at least not right away. I would rather spend my time with my kids. And I just think if you got rid of those same people that were just always here, it would force other people, or even open the door for people who wanted to run for the assembly, their local government, even the mayor, and they wouldn't feel like they were fighting this, I don't know, say titan of the town who's been there forever, because, you know, that's just what they've always done. I see I have a different view on government, I think, than most of you. It is, in my view, a necessary evil, and I don't see us as heroes in any sense being on the assembly. I see us more as like the bad guy, the necessary bad guy, not like some Joker villain or something like that. And I think that it would be better for people if they weren't always there locked in this like weird adversarial position. I see it from time to time. And I think that it would be better for just people in general if you weren't so set on like having, that's my team, you know, and we're trying to collect the team together and get more people on the team. You know, let's get some random people from out there who just like maybe want to try it. I would be really happy if there was at least one or two people who maybe they're not doing so well financially. The $3,000 that we get a year just as an assembly member would probably go to great bounds for these people, and their opinions would be, right there front and center. They would be the ones voting on it. And I don't know. Term limits are very popular across the US. I don't know how popular they are at a local level. I do know that Anchorage has them. I just feel like this would be a good move to just free things up for other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Norheim. Further discussion from the Assembly on this topic? Member Mucci, go right ahead.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll ask the same question as I asked on the other one. What's the process for making this happen?
So term limits can be put in place by the Assembly by ordinance. And then it also does have to go to a vote of the people, I believe. Is that how you remember it, Taylor? Is that how the ordinance is written?
Yes, my understanding with Sarah was that we would be voting to put it on the ballot. We cannot impose it ourselves. Just we vote on it to put it directly on the ballot, and the people would choose. It is completely out of our hands, other than putting it on the ballot.
So it will be before the Assembly for its first reading at the next meeting.
Yes.
The discussion from the Assembly on this topic.
I have a question for Member Norheim.
Absolutely, proceed.
In the last few local elections, incumbents have lost seats. Is that, I guess, so that would imply that it is possible for incumbents to lose seats. So why, in your opinion, are term limits preferable to elections?
Well, the idea being that, yes, incumbents can lose seats. That is entirely possible. However, nationally, the numbers are stacked against anybody running against them. That's really it. If in fact you had more people running all the time and they knew that they weren't going up against somebody, they may put their name may put their name in the hat to try and win, because they know that the seat will be open and they don't have to, waste their time trying to go against somebody who's been there for 20 years. Say in our state position, I know it's a higher level up, but we have Don Young, who's been there for a very long time. I don't believe there's anybody really running against him or even really has a chance unless he just stops. And I see that on the local level too. I mean, when you got your person, and that, like I said, that's your team there, nobody wants to run against him, and it starts setting up this weird just like tactics to get more of your team in there. And I really don't like that. The whole point of the government is that we're supposed to be representing the people, but if you've got some people who are trying to like tactically maneuver their candidates in there, then it's just it seems like it gets ugly, and I would prefer things be less ugly and just more fair across the board. What it would really do, well, we'll leave it at that.
Did I answer your question, Member Tremblay?
Sure.
Cool. I guess I only had one question for you, Member Norheim, because I saw that on there, and it's funny you mentioned the Don Young one. I thought about that too. A guy who's been in office for 40 some years now, and every 2-year cycle too, he gets re-upped once in every time. And I see it from a different light, that it's not Don Young's fault that he keeps getting elected. That is our responsibility, as the voters. And I don't mean this in a callous way, but if every election cycle has the same one vote as everyone else, and obviously, the majority of people think Don Young is, and he's their person, and whether I agree with that or not is irrelevant. But my question, I guess, for you, I was thinking about whenever we were talking about doing, making a change to our system is, and you might not be able to answer the question, and that's okay, is what concrete problem will this solve if we go forward with it? You know, when I see something like, oh, we're going to make a change, if we're making a change, it generally implies there's a problem. So what problem are we trying to solve with this if we move forward with it? If that makes sense as a question.
Right. So there's no serious problem here, but really I see it because we would be voting on moving it to the people would be, do you believe that people have the right to agree that we need to have term limits on the local level? Sorry, my headset is dying. Essentially, with term limits being so popular just nationwide, I think it's not out of line to ask our local population if they think term limits are good for the assembly. And that's exactly what I'm doing, is asking the assembly to say, hey, we need to see if the public is into this. And I believe that not approving such a thing, I mean, this seems like we're getting into a discussion territory on if it was an ordinance, but, and go ahead and cut me off if we're
you're
getting
good.
too far down that rabbit hole. But yeah, it would be, what do the people think? The people should have a vote on it. And as you just said, you don't have a problem with sending things to the public to vote on. So when we put it up there, you know, we can make the arguments as to what problem it's fixing, which there isn't too much of a problem. But I like the idea of having a people say in term limits, since it's becoming such a real popular idea nationwide.
Understood. Thank you, Member Norheim. Member Lynn.
Yeah, there's two sides, obviously, to every coin. And one of them that I think about is our relationship, when I say our, the borough's relationship at the state level. And whether it be with Alaska Municipal League or any of the other organizations of which we belong to. And I'll use myself as an example. I was on the AML Policy Committee for quite a while, but it took me at least 3 years to learn the ropes how to deal in that environment with this, because you're dealing with all the other legislators from the boroughs in the state, and you're always coming back to look at what benefits you, essentially what benefits your own borough when you do this. And in many cases, that requires you to take a considerable amount of time to study the laws, to study where your borough's at, and to actually bounce those ideas around. It's not easy, and it is extremely time-consuming. I can tell you in a couple cases, because I knew those people throughout the state that really benefited this borough. One case happened to have been the sales tax policy for AML. But I would be concerned about the amount of time you wanted to put on this. If you think one term, I don't even think a person begins to know this borough in one term, how it all operates and what's behind it. 2 terms, maybe. 3 terms might be better. But I've got concerns about where you put those on, because I think you have to have continuity between the borough legislative group, the state legislative group, and the state groups of which we're memberships of. And that has to be a major factor for us to be a player in the long run. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead, Member Norheim.
So just to clarify, because I realize I did not say this, the term limits would be for 2 terms, and then you could do another term as mayor. It would be capped out at 9 years of public service. And you could run again. You would just be forced to take a full term off, 3 years off. So if you wanted, you could do 6 years on the assembly. You would be forced to take 3 years off if you did not run for mayor. And then you could re-up again and do another 6 years. You're not allowed to come back. So really, I mean, you could do it as 6 and then 3 as mayor, and then come back as mayor again, and then do 6 more on the assembly. So you're not cut off from running on your local government. It's just meant to break things up a little bit.
Well, I look forward to the discussion once it's an action item. Any other comments today before we move on from that one? Right on. Item C, Assembly member comments. Any comments from the Assembly today?
Yes.
Whatever topic, there you go, Member Tremblay.
Thank you.
You bet.
Just since I missed last meeting, it was the first meeting I've missed since I was elected. And of course, we talked about the topic of discussion of how to tell when we were done with COVID. Since I didn't get a chance to chime in on that, I just thought I'd give my 2 cents. Some context, my partner is back at work for the cruise ship he was employed by a year and a month after he was supposed to be back at the ship before. And it's very exciting. We're very excited about it. And there's a lot of question marks about when they will actually get here, when they'll even be fully staffed, which they are not currently right now. They're making their way through all of this just as much as we are. And our vaccination rate is something that we are using in our kind of background conversations with them, trying to get them to come to Petersburg and to let their passengers into town, which would be a huge boost for our economy. And so the vaccination rate in town is an amazing thing that we can point to. So is the dashboard that would let people know in real time what the situation is here in Petersburg. And the third thing that we are using to try to talk to them about that progress that we're making is still having a mask mandate in public spaces, because this industry in particular this summer is a make or break for them, just in way as it is for, I think, some businesses in town. And so for me, that's kind of why I am having a hard time imagining rescinding the mask mandate until after summer, even with our amazing numbers and rates and all of that. This is a summer of transition, and I think that will help us keep the public spaces as safe as possible for people choosing not to vaccinate, people in health situations that mean that even if they are vaccinated, they may not be as protected as somebody with a healthy immune system. And so I guess I would beg the public's patience with us as we try to navigate this, and hopefully it contributes to I can already feel the difference as a retail employee in who's coming to town and how enthusiastic they are about traveling. It's very exciting to hear that, and I'm hoping that we get more independent travelers and families coming back up and that kind of stuff. But one thing that I was also kind of devastated to come home to was that a member of the community who could not be vaccinated because of their age had been hospitalized for COVID and an infection afterwards. And, you know, we've always done all that we can, and that won't always be enough. But I know trying to protect the vulnerable people in my life has always been my foremost priority. And I think it is for most of the people in this community too. So hopefully we can just keep doing one foot in front of the other best we can and come out of this stronger on the other side. But anyway, my 2 thoughts on that. Thank you for your patience.
Of course. Thank you, Member Tremblay. Any other comments on any topic by members of the Assembly today? Right on. That brings us to Rick. Oh, yes. Member Norheim. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm way over here. One quick thing. I got to say it last year. It was awesome. Today we're missing it by a day, but tomorrow morning, may the 4th be with you.
Thank you, Member Norheim. Brings us to recognitions. Any recognitions from the Assembly or Borough staff today? With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. All right, meeting adjourned. Nice work. Let's keep the train moving forward.
Good
job. It's good to keep the skills sharp. Yeah. And I can be home in time to see my son when he's home from school.